Okay, dudes and gals, things just get weirder and weirder. Of course, the more you're looking into anything, the weirder and weirder it becomes, because the cosmos is a very, very peculiar place, and the human being are very, very deluded and misguided. Now, somebody in recent times turned me on to this channel, and this channel is Danny Jones. And he has almost 1 million subscribers, and many of the videos that I've browsed over, I've watched a few of them. He wants to know what the very essence of Christianity is, and he has on all different sorts of very renowned and respected scholars. Now here he's speaking to a scholar, and they're talking about some passages which no biblical scholar knows what to do with. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because some of you, you would remember me on quite a lot of occasions when I've been decrying Christianity. I've been taking the piss out of Jesus and his apostles, and I was always saying, what is this dude called Jesus hanging around with 12 apostles in this Gethsemane garden? And I always used to go with the 12 apostles. You know, an apostle is something quite monolithic. It's something big and prominent. And I'm like, I think there's something fishy going on. I think there was something fishy going on in that Gethsemane park. And I was saying things like, but there was a lot of rustling bushes and grunts and groans. And I've said, a bit like one of these dogging parks. Now in the UK, we've got this terminology called dogging. And if you're going to go dogging, it don't mean you're taking your dog for a walk. It means you're going to be going into one of these selected queer folk parks where men convene for casual sex in the bushes. So I said that Gethsemane Park was very likely to be that variety. Now, I wasn't being that serious about it, to be fair, people. But what I do know is that the people of bygone days weren't very often drawing a distinction between what variety of sex they had sex with, i.e. Whether it was with a female, if they were male, or whether it was with a male. And all throughout the Middle East, boys are preferred, and many of the Greek philosophers and well-to-do people used to have a whole entourage of boys, harems with boys in, and this, that and the other. It was a thing. And so, listen to this. Listen to this.
So obviously I just had our mutual friend Mr. Hillman on the show. He's incredible, man.
That's my Greek teacher.
How did you discover him?
I did a show with Carl Ruck.
Okay, yeah.
About Eucharist and the Eleusinian mysteries, stuff like that. And he follows Ruck. He's a big fan of Ruck.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he would call himself a disciple of Ruck. I think he would say that.
Yeah.
Because he's throughout his career, he's always followed. Ruck's been around forever.
How many people do you think there are like Ruck and Ammon that can have read that much Greek?
So,
Not a lot.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, unless they're like...
They're speaking about
professor in classics.
Greek scholars
right.
people that have studied
like and Ruck,
the Bible.
Ruck is a professor in classics. Right. But they just do it for the love of it. They love the ancient
biblical scripture and all that different sorts of
stuff. They love it. They're not
The
for a job
Septuagint. That's the Torah written in Greek, isn't it?
Some academics do that, or become a teacher or something.
Mm-hmm.
They love it. They do it for the love of it, and I respect that a lot.
So anyway,
biggest thing,
it's coming up.
When I
It's
started
coming.
that podcast with him, I was like, what are you most interested in out of everything that you've ever studied? He goes, I want to know more. I want to know what Jesus was doing in that park.
Yeah, that's one of those things.
He won't let that go.
And that's in Mark too.
That's in Mark too. Yes.
There's that passage in Mark. It's a very strange passage. No one knows
Here
what to
we
do with
go.
it. It's right before the day he gets crucified. He's in the great, or what is it? At the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's and when Judas pulls up with the people coming to arrest him, it says that a boy runs away. And the word in Greek is neoniskos, I think it is, and it means like, the word literally means like baby boy, like that word's only used for children. It's not used for teenagers. It's not used for males. It's used for children, and it says he ran away and his sindone fell off. A sindone is like a wrapping you wear. Okay. And so he runs off naked. So what's going on in this passage?
Right.
And yeah, it's in there.
I think from what I understood from the podcast that we did, is he said that Jesus was at some crazy party drinking snake venom before that, and then he went there and was using the boy as an antidote for the snake venom. The boy's liquids.
That's what Amon says. He has his reasons, so he has his.
What do you
sources.
think about that?
Well, there is. So the only precedent I would say about that, because my things, I like to look at the text and what the texts say. And in Ovid's Metamorphosis, there's right before Orpheus gets killed, he gets torn apart by the Maenads sent by Dionysus, and the scene before that, he's mourning over the loss of his wife Eurydice, and it says in the text that women are throwing themselves at him and he's denying them, and then it says he took up the Thracian rites of plucking the young boy's manhood before they came of age. He became like, it says he turned to the love of boys. Oh. And he became like a. Oh, wow. This is Ovid's Metamorphosis, not me.
And who's he talking about again?
He's talking about Orpheus.
Orpheus.
Who's an ancient hero theologian, like great figure. Like it's like. There's actually, if you actually look up the Oxford English translation of Ovid's Metamorphosis, it's gone. Well, they took it out. It's kind of, because I don't even know if I blame them.
Amon was also telling me in the Greek language, there was also no word to distinguish like heterosexuality versus homosexuality.
None.
And he said
There's
basically
no word for gay or homosexual in Greek.
Like they didn't think about it. They just thought of like having men and women was the same.
Yeah, it's eros, which is love, or
bizarre,
love.
Dude.
Agape, love. There's different words for love.
Yeah.
But eros is that erotic. That's eros, erotic love. That's what it
right.
is. So they would use that for man and women, or man and man, or women and women. It didn't matter. They just didn't think about it. It just didn't matter. Like, it's just probably more common than it is today for people to engage in that type of stuff.
Yeah. So that debate that you had between Amon and there was another guy who he was talking to who was a Hebrew linguist or something.
Oh yeah, Kip Davis.
Yeah.
He's a Dead Sea Scrolls scholar.
So what are the 2 points of views between Amon and Kip Davis, and what were they sort of debating about?
They were discussing which came first, the Hebrew Masoretic text of the Old Testament or the Greek Septuagint, which version came first.
Okay.
The consensus is that.
Now, you get the general idea that these people are learned. They speak to a lot of other learned people, so they know what they're speaking about because they've done the study, and the scriptures that they're speaking about are verifiable. And when you get bizarre lines like when the soldiers came upon Jesus in Gethsemane Park, a little boy went running away from a child, went running away from him, and his wrapping, fell away because he quickly wrapped himself up in it. What was going on? And then when they speak about, well, you know, it was all going on. Of course it was all going on, all that different sort of stuff. We're talking 2,000 years ago, people, where there was no laws against paedophilia or all that different sorts of stuff. So it's very interesting, isn't it? And so this is also one of the reasons I have absolutely no time for silly Christians. Because the only claptrap they are prepared to read is the claptrap which is in those 66 books of the Old and New Testament. They wouldn't dare listening to any of these scholars, and they wouldn't dare reading any of the other massively prolific information which is out there speaking about all these people which were supposedly around at that time. And then it just said, at the beginning of this, it said, like, even the first books about Jesus, you know, the Torah, no, not the Torah, in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, they weren't even written for at least 100 years after Jesus supposedly had died. So nobody knew him. What was going on there? You know, people were very, very scholarly at that time. You've got all the Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, and all these. So why wasn't anybody keeping accounts of all these miracles and all these wonderful things? 100 years later, people, come on. If people don't smell a rat, then they're absolutely so dumb. They're just dumb. That's it. It's clear as day. And what they also said was that the last 11 verses in Mark were additional, because the last 11 verses in Mark speak about people verifying Christ's resurrection, because up until 400 years after, maybe 1,000 years after, I think it was in 1400, that there's extra text added to make it more viable and feasible, inventing stories that people, you know, saw Christ. Like it says, 500 people saw Christ, you know, during this couple of days with his resurrection, and then he appeared to the apostles, didn't he? And then doubting Thomas, you know, put his finger in the womb, all that sort of thing. Rubbish. Every single bit of it, rubbish. Of course it's rubbish. And what's beautiful is when we get absolute confirmation. They said that there's not a single biblical scholar on the planet who would dare discount that the extra 11 verses verifying Jesus' resurrection were added about 1400, because they've got the manuscripts of the originals. So people, some of you may think like, you know, yours aren't the Christians, they're not too bad. No, they are bad. They're very, very bad. They're rotten. They're rotten through and through. What's rotten about them? Their stupidity, their ignorance, their defiance to logic, and how they all get bolshy and larger than life, talking about, oh, Jesus Christ the Saviour, can't you see the devil in them? I can. You know, I'm a very intuitive person. I can see the devil in every single one of them, because they're all being misguided and lied to and deceived. And if they're not the representations of the devil himself, knowingly doing that, but if they're not knowingly doing it, then they have demons within them which are exhibiting this stuff. Complete claptrap, people. Now, there's videos on here. This video itself, it says the oldest Christian scriptures, God is really Satan, Gnostic informant. Exactly. Well, I've listened to plenty of Gnostic stuff speaking about Yahweh, very, very likely being Satan. And if he wasn't Satan, then he created Satan, and they're part and parcel of the same thing. But of course, you know, all this stuff is very mythological, and you may want to dismiss whether they ever existed at all. But I've had experiences, people, which tell me otherwise. So there are things that do exist in the supernatural, in other dimensions of consciousness, and lots of people knew about them because they've experienced them, because many, many myriad of people have experienced all different sorts of supernatural things. There are different realms out there which we can enter, and so I don't outwardly or overtly dismiss everything. What I'm saying is that Yahweh ain't no God of the universe, and Jesus weren't no son of the God. He never walked on water, he never rose the dead, and he never rose from the dead himself. He was a guy, a well-informed guy, probably somebody that had been taught by the Gnostics for a long time. He may have had Reiki healing powers. Obviously he had a very good knowledge of human psychology, and you know, by all accounts seemed to be a wholesome guy, even though he often liked the cream of a young guy by the sounds of things. And you know, I often say facetiously, don't I, in my jokes, in the videos, I say last night Jesus came to me in the astral and blew me, had a nosh on my noggin. Why am I saying these things? Because they're exceedingly blasphemous. Why have I been saying these things? You know, throughout, you know, this past couple of years, and now it's turning out that it was very highly likely true. Where was Jesus' wife? Where was Jesus' children? Where's the bloodline? Doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist? Lots of things, people. Lots of things to contemplate. And the more we look into it, the wilder and the wilder it gets. But the beautiful thing is, Christianity will not be able to survive the proliferation of this stuff which is coming out now and being promulgated all over the world. It just won't be able to survive it. And so let's just say in 100 years, I think it will be all over. All religions should be all over, because people growing up these days, they're very, very secular, and they're just not buying this bullshit. There's too much information out there, people, and that's the thing. People will, in 100 years' time will doubtless be exceedingly confused. I don't know what the psyche of the human being is likely to be when we discover in time, like lots of you have, that we cannot verify, trust or believe a single thing. Because even though they say, oh, well, we've got this document and this is dated carbon C16 and, you know, it's this period. Well, then another document is found and it's earlier than that, which refutes all that. That's what's been happening, hasn't it? And so when I'm reading this book, which is the Isis Unveiled, which is Gaia, it's the world unveiled, then it's looking very, very deeply at all this stuff that's been before and refuting a great deal of it. And this book was written in 1875, in 76, 1877, those sort of periods. And if they only knew what we know now. Now, the thing is about, let me just get this book for some of you that don't know what I'm speaking about. This book is a double volume, and the author is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She was one of the co-founders of the Theosophical Society way back when. Now, I am there, and there is about 40 pages to read before we get to some of the index, and so I'm almost through that one of 650 pages. And it's pretty small print, and it's dense. It's not a novel. It wasn't a thrill read. It was an informative read. It was a scholarly read. It took many years to compile this stuff, and many years even to write it down. And apparently Blavatsky was in a trance, channeling ancient gurus and mystics while she was writing it, because people struggle to know where she got this enormous amount of information in her life, of places all over the world, cultures all over the world. But many people would speak very vehemently that she was channeling, and they witnessed it themselves. They saw a very distant look in her eyes. They saw her as if she was looking at someone and communicating with them. And she would often write in different hand styles, pages and pages and pages in very distinctly different hand styles, which is indicative of a remote writing. And so there's a lot of weird stuff in the world, people, and when you get into it, then your consciousness is opened up, and of course you become exceedingly skeptical about everything, and that's just the way it is. And so in my 15 years of being on this journey of learning, and I've been doing it every single day incessantly. I don't stop, I never stop. So I've put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of study. Can you imagine every day for 14, 15 years? Yeah. It's a lot of books, it's a lot of videos, it's a lot of stuff, people. And when I wrote my book, Closer to God, A Journey to the Self, many of you people will know what that looks like, but there's some of you that won't. So I'm going to get these books. When I wrote this book, which is 700 pages long and covers an enormous amount of stuff, I just stood by the computer for 8 solid months every day for about 5 hours a day, just downloading this stuff without knowing what I was going to be writing next, just looking up and kind of like channeling, and then magically, as the fingers touched the keyboard, it would just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. And then when I'd come to an end of a chapter, I'm like, I don't know what to say next. I don't know where to go next. I've got no idea. Anyway, let me just put in chapter number 23, chapter number 24, and see what happens. And what happened? Well, that's what happened, people. So if you're interested in very powerful stuff with some of the greatest minds that have ever lived, I've included what they had to say because it was meaningful to me, because I'd experienced certain things which they spoke about. Well, if you're interested in that, the link to the Amazon is under most of my videos. And so anyway, I wanted to make this video. The channel is Danny Jones, and it's an exceedingly informative channel. So for those of you that are interested, take a look at that. For all of you Christians, just keep shitting your pants, because it's coming down, people. It's coming down. Jesus weren't what you thought he was. Probably a decent guy, but, you know, like I say, was quite partial to the cream of a young guy, so it appears.